This is not a tax.
Okay. Why
it is your money.
Okay, why then, Mr. President, if it's not a tax, if that bill hypothetically say is passed by the National Assembly, it's legally binding?
Yeah, of course.
It's not a tax, you said.
It is not a tax.
Why would I contribute? And if I don't want?
That's what the law says.
But why are you passing it?
Yeah, the question I'm asking you is, are you saying, Abdi, that you don't think it is your business to contribute to the employment of the unemployed Kenyans?
Okay, it's the responsibility.
It is not
of the
your
Kenyan
business.
government. Okay, hang on, Mr. President.
Who is Kenyan government? Kenyan government is me and you.
Hang on, Mr. President. You said the mandate of the Kenyan people.
Exactly.
There is a represent. We can't represent all of us.
Yes.
I worked hard for my money.
Yes.
You said it's not tax. But there is a bill in Parliament. If it's passed, it's legally binding. Why would I make a contribution for others to succeed? It's your business as the government. You are the head of state. You have the responsibility. You have the mandate.
That's why the Constitution gives me the power to tax.
But it's you who is leading the
government. That's why the Constitution gives me the power to sign things into law.
Okay.
You know? So I am simply doing my job.
Mr. President, let's get the specifics very clear.
Yeah.
It's a very simple issue.
Yes.
You are saying it's not a tax.
It is not a tax.
That's the Commander-in-Chief saying.
Yes, it is not a tax.
Hang on, let's go step by step.
Yes.
There is a bill that will come before Parliament.
Absolutely.
Hypothetically, let's say it's passed. If it's not a tax, why would I contribute?
Because it is the law.
The law, Mr. President.
Once it is passed, it is the law.
Okay, meaning then it's a tax, and you understand it's a tax.
Yeah, once it is passed, it is the law, and you have to contribute. Let me ask you.
One rider, Mr. President.
Let me ask you. Just allow me. Let me ask you, Abdi. Do you know that today you contribute 6% of your salary to NSSF?
Correct.
Why? It is not a tax.
Mr. President,
hang on.
On that, Mr. President.
Okay.
It's the same thing.
Okay,
it is the law.
The issue, though.
There is the NHIF question, Mr. President.
Yes.
Which you have passionately talked about.
I am very passionate about.
Which is still, again, because you have cherry-picked on the NSSF, but there is the NHIF component, which I still pay for.
Yes.
You pay for as well.
Yes.
But then what's the point of contributing to the NHIF program, yet I go to the hospital and I only get paid for the bed?
Precisely. That is why I want to make NHIF work. You know how I'm going? I'm working on it, by the way. It is in the works, and it will be part of this exercise. What I have done on NHIF, and I have a good history, long history with NHIF. When we came into office in 2013, there were only about 3 million contributors on NHIF. And by the way, NHIF works. I was in Thika, Kenyatta Referral Hospital.
Teaching and Referral Hospital.
Teaching and Referral Hospital. And the doctors there spoke about NHIF in a way that inspired me. How NHIF has helped many people who would otherwise have not been able to get medical service. What I'm doing with NHIF is exactly what I said. And by the way, Hussein.
Ayub.
Ayub Abdi. By the way, this housing plan, I talked about it in the campaign everywhere. And I promised the people of Kenya, if you elect me president, this housing thing, I am going to use it to get jobs for our young people and to remove Kenyans from slums. So it is not something that I arrived in office and I started. If you read the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza, it is a big chapter. In fact, I was asking some of the MPs that were trying to say, oh, you know, I asked them, when me and you were standing on the podium and told the people of Kenya, elect us, we are going to arrange for housing, so that you thought it was a joke. It was not a joke.
Na Mheshimiwa Rais, tukisalia katika.
So that's where we are, Abdi. Hapo ndio tuko.
To take you back to what you said on the 26th of July, 2022, during the presidential debate,
yes,
before the elections. To quote you said, we can limit the taxation on fuel. Take, for example, VAT, which you said, I think we need to rethink about it. That was the UDA presidential candidate. President William Ruto, months later, is proposing to Parliament to raise it to 16%. Why the double speak, Mr. President?
Thank you very much. Let me start this way, and allow me to give you a bit of context. When I came into office, I did 3 things the first day in my office that I had committed to the people of Kenya. Number 1, I made sure that port operations that were unnecessarily moved from Mombasa were returned. Number 2, I made sure that our police have financial independence. Number 3, I appointed the judges that were supposed to have been appointed, and I committed that I will expand the budget of the judiciary. If you look at the budget this year, we have added an extra 4 billion shillings to the judiciary. When I came into office, I found a huge crisis of fuel. In fact, before even I came here, immediately the results were announced. Amongst the first people to come and see me were oil marketers. And they told me, we are in a crisis. We are going to have a stock out because we cannot have fuel. Government has told us to sell fuel subsidized, but they haven't paid us. The government owes us 65 billion. So that whole subsidy story you hear, it was just a pledge. So I found that we had a 65 billion shilling subsidy to pay. Meanwhile, our financial situation was very bad. And by the way, that subsidy was accumulating at 15 billion shillings every month. I don't know whether you appreciate the magnitude of that. So when I came into office, I looked at it, and the one thing that I did that in retrospect was the right thing is to have an economic team around me. So we sat down, we went through the numbers, and finally we discovered that there wasn't actually a fuel problem. It was a misdiagnosis. The problem was an economic and much more a dollar problem, because there was fuel that had come, but the oil marketers could not find the dollars to go and buy, because government was maintaining an artificial, rate. So there were 2 parallel rates. There was dollar by government, which said was 120, and there was another, if you really wanted to buy the dollars, you had to go and get it at 128, thereabout. So what did we do? First, we reinstated, because it was not a fuel issue, we reinstated the interbank forex market. What did that do? The spread that was between 12 and 15% has now shrunk to between 2 and 3 shillings, or difference. That is point number 1. Number 2, we went and negotiated for credit on all our petroleum products. So we've negotiated 6 months to ease the pressure on the dollar. In fact, many importers were finding it difficult to get dollars to import raw materials. We have since sorted out that problem. The liquidity around the dollar market has improved.
Okay.
We've allowed the dollar to find its own level. We are not artificially managing the exchange rate, because managing it artificially costs us money. So we have an issue there. So when I came into office also, I found that we had commitments of 900 billion Kenya shillings on the roads. 900 billion. I have tried to work with the various departments, Kera, Kura, Kenha, to try and understand how do we manage this 900 billion. We've tried to cut it down. We've tried to stop some of the roads that have not started. We've died. But we still remain with close to about 680 billion that we have to manage. If I have to complete these roads, I need extra money to do it. And every place I go, I was yesterday in Nyandarua. Communities, people, leaders tell us, we need a road here, Mr. President, we need a road here. We need to finish the Mau Mau roads. You need to finish this. You need to do this. We need an extra road. They were even telling me there's a road called Kinamba to some place. So that whole equation changed. But what have I done? I have said, yes, we're going to increase the VAT by 8% for two reasons. Number one, because having differential rates, one at 8%, others at 16%, poses a problem, an integrity problem. People use it as a loophole to manipulate numbers, VAT in, VAT out. So the advice that my economic team working with Treasury gave was we must eliminate this loophole that people are exploiting, number one. Number two, this 8% that we are adding is going to give us about 50 billion shillings. It will begin to deal with the problem of roads across the country.
Okay.
But what have I done to balance it out? Because I made a commitment that we need to relook, right? I have removed on the same fuel, as we add 8%, I have removed road 3.5% road development levy from fuel. I have removed 2% of IDF on the same fuel. And to balance it out, because it is the same Kenyan who is going to pay from their pocket, I have removed VAT 8% on gas. And I have removed other taxes that I'm going to explain to you. About 10, actually 14 other taxes that I have removed to try and even so that we have a balanced budget.
Okay. We'll talk about the other taxes as proposed in the finance bill, which will come before Parliament. But you have mentioned that there is a team of economic advisors.
You're right.
David Ndii has been in your campaign team throughout the campaign before the elections. So is the current National Treasury Cabinet Secretary, Professor Njuguna Ndung'u. When you came to the presidential debate and you made the remarks on the 26th of July, which I quoted you verbatim, I think you said majority of taxes that are in that bracket, 15 almost you said, but we need to integrate at least these 15 different types of taxes. Did they not advise you, or you did not take the advice?
Precisely, if you heard me clearly, there are many other taxes that we have since removed. So you must look at it in context. Yeah? What my economic team advised that time is that we need to relook at these taxes. When we came into government, we found a situation. The country was in a crisis. And by the way, I have had to make very difficult decisions. In fact, coming into office, I had to cancel the borrowing of about 300 billion shillings that the intention was to borrow that would have taken the country down the cliff. I had to step in and stop many of the subsidies that were being dished left, right, and center. I had to make many changes. I had to reorganize the whole budget because we found a country headed and sliding into bankruptcy. And so when you find that kind of situation, you have to deal with the situation with the urgency and with the acuteness of thinking that is required.
Okay.
Yeah? You don't operate outside a context. So the question that you have asked me, did we remove some? Did we look at the fuel issue? Yes. We said, while it is true that we have a crisis and we have to deal with a pending bill of 700 billion for the roads that we have, while it is also true that we have to look at what additionally we can do. But we need to put a relief on Kenyans.
Okay.
That's why, apart from, and you know the reason why the tax on the VAT on fuel or petroleum products is much more attractive is because it is spread across all Kenyans. So everybody carries a small bit of it.
Okay.
But we have also knocked down other taxes from the same fuel, as I have told you. IDF we've taken down, road development levy we've taken it down, and a host of other taxes that we have taken down.
Okay. Final question on this. This is an issue, Mr. President, which dates back to 2013 as a condition by the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, in which then the leader of the majority party, the current defense CS who sits in cabinet, Adan Duale, said that the 181 MPs have been convinced by the party leadership, the President, Uhuru Kenyatta, and his deputy, William Ruto, on the rationale of the 8% VAT on petroleum products. He continued, 181 is a very big number and will convince our members. And this being a precautionary facility by the IMF, can you tell the Kenyan people that there is no extra hand of pressure on the Kenyan government by the International Monetary Fund?
My good friend, the International Monetary Fund does not run the government of Kenya. I do. IMF does not make decisions for the government of Kenya. I do. IMF are our partners. They work with us on our priorities. They work with us on our proposals. They support us where they can. They give us advice where they can, but ultimately, we make the decisions ourselves. And it is not up to IMF to see how to sort out the 680 billion that we have on the road sector. It is not up to any other person. It is up to us. When I get out of this office and go to this village and that constituency and that ward, it is not the IMF that is asked about roads. It is the government of Kenya that I run. So I think there is always this thinking that external factors dictate to us. I think you know me better. Mm-hmm. I can stand up to any pressure from any corner. Mm-hmm. I make the right decisions for our country.
Your Excellency.
This is not a tax.
Okay. Why
it is your money.
Okay. Why then, Mr. President, if it's not a tax, if that bill hypothetically say is passed by the National Assembly, it's legally binding?
Yeah, of course.
It's not a tax, you said.
It is not a tax.
Why would I contribute? And if I don't want?
That's what the law says.
But why are you passing it?
Yeah, the question I am asking you is, are you saying, Abdi, that you don't think it is your business to contribute to the employment of the unemployed Kenyans?
Okay, it's the responsibility.
It is
of
not
the
your
Kenyan
business.
government. Okay, hang on, Mr. President.
Who is Kenyan government? Kenyan government is me and you.
Hang on, Mr. President. You saw the mandate of the Kenyan people.
Exactly.
There is a represent. We can't represent all of us.
Yes.
I worked hard for my money.
Yes.
You said it's not tax. But there is a bill in Parliament. If it's passed, it's legally binding. Why would I make a contribution for others to succeed? It's your business as the government. You are the head of state. You have the responsibility. You have the mandate.
That's why the Constitution gives me the power to tax.
But it's you who is leading the
government. That's why the Constitution gives me the power to sign things into law.
Okay.
You know? So I am simply doing my job.
Mr. President, let's get the specifics very clear.
Yeah.
It's a very simple issue.
Yes.
You are saying it's not a tax.
It is not a tax.
That's the Commander-in-Chief saying.
Yes, it is not a tax.
Hang on, let's go step by step.
Yes.
There is a bill that will come before Parliament.
Absolutely.
Hypothetically, let's say it's passed. If it's not a tax, why would I contribute?
Because it is the law.
The law, Mr. President.
Once it is passed, it is the law.
Okay, meaning then it's a tax, and you understand it's a tax.
Yeah, once it is passed, it is the law, and you have to contribute. Let me ask you.
One rider, Mr. President.
Let me ask you. Just allow me. Let me ask you, Abdi. Do you know that today you contribute 6% of your salary to NSSF?
Correct.
Why? It is not a tax.
Mr.
Okay,
President.
hang on.
On that,
President.
Mr. President.
Okay.
It's the same thing.
Okay, hang
because
on,
it is the law.
The
Okay,
issue,
okay.
though,
Mheshimiwa
the issue, though,
There is the NHIF question, Mr. President.
Yes.
Which you have passionately talked about.
I am very passionate about
Which is still, again, because you have cherry-picked on the NSSF, but there's the NHIF component, which I still pay for.
Yes.
You pay for as well.
Yes.
But then what's the point of contributing to the NHIF program, yet I go to the hospital and I only get paid for the bed?
Precisely. That is why I want to make NHIF work. You know how I'm going? I'm working on it, by the way. It is in the works, and it will be part of this exercise. What I have done on NHIF, and I have a good history, long history with NHIF. When we came into office in 2013, there were only about 3 million contributors on NHIF. And by the way, NHIF works. I was in Thika, Kenyatta Referral Hospital.
Teaching and Referral Hospital.
Teaching and
Ruto
Referral
University.
Hospital. And the doctors there spoke about NHIF in a way that inspired me. How NHIF has helped many people who would otherwise have not been able to get medical service. What I'm doing with NHIF is exactly what I said. And by the way, Hussein,
Ayub.
Ayub, sorry, Ayub Abdi. By the way, this housing plan, I talked about it in the campaign everywhere. And I promised the people of Kenya, if you elect me president, this housing thing, I am going to use it to get jobs for our young people and to remove Kenyans from slums. So it is not something that I arrived in office and I started. If you read the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza, it is a big chapter. In fact, I was asking some of the MPs that were trying to say, oh, you know, I asked them, when me and you were standing on the podium and told the people of Kenya, elect us, we are going to arrange for housing so that you thought it was a joke. It was not a joke.
Na Mheshimiwa Rais, tukisalia katika
that's where we are, Abdi. Hapo ndio tuko. We have taken it very serious.
Mr. President, just to be clear on this, tonight you have mentioned my fellow countrymen and women.
Yes.
On many occasions.
Yes.
Your fellow countrymen and women, the Kenyan people, want to understand why the government has locked out the media in Shakahola. Question number 2, because the media has been locked out, your fellow countrymen and women want questions answered. Because you're the commander-in-chief and you get raw intelligence and briefings every morning here at State House. What exactly is the true picture of Shakahola?
If it was meant for the media, you know, Abdi, even if you went to Shakahola, would you go and film the graves and bodies that are disintegrated and take it to the people of Kenya? Would you do that as a responsible journalist?
There are ethics that guide us. We can't do that.
Yes.
But why the blanket?
There is absolutely
media blackout?
There is absolutely the scene that is there is not a scene to report. Yeah, the scene that is there is not a scene to report. And my friend, what would be there to hide about graves and dead people? Surely.
Tell us the true picture now. Because you get the intelligence, isn't it?
I get the intelligence.
And you label yourself as
But do you know why there is intelligence?
Yes.
There is intelligence because there is a limit as to how far you can go with intelligence. If intelligence was meant for the media, it wouldn't be intelligence.
Okay, not the media per se. It's the Kenyan people want answers.
But you are the media.
Hang on, Mr. President.
There is a way I am going to communicate to the Kenyan people when the time comes.
It's through us, the professionals in the media. That's why here we are tonight. You speak to the Kenyan people about a raft of issues. Now, the Kenyan people want to understand the concerns that they have about Shakahola. Can't you tell them, the sovereign people of the Republic of Kenya, about the truth?
When the time comes for me to speak about Shakahola, I will to the people of Kenya.
When is that going to be?
As it is, the people of Kenya will get information from the officers on the ground to the extent that that information can be shared. But it is not fair and it is not right, Abdi, for you to tell me that I come and broadcast intelligence information. You know that's not possible.
Probably,
even if you try how.
Mr. President.
That's what you campaign
Absolutely.
on? Okay.
And I am spot on.
Okay. allow me to quote this Treasury data, which shows between October and April, that is last year until April the previous month. Treasury data shows that the new administration, the Kenya Kwanza administration, tapped into loans worth 425 billion Kenya shillings, which is more than 434.6 billion that the Jubilee government borrowed in the same period when it came to power in 2013. You are therefore above by what Uhuru borrowed at the same period by 17.4 billion Kenya shillings. Why the contradictory position?
Yeah, it's not contradictory.
Why borrow more?
The budget, my friend, we are using is Uhuru's budget. The budget you will hold me to account is the one we are discussing. You know, when you have a budget in place, even if you came into office today, unless you go to parliament to change the way the budget is funded, you can't. They had budgeted to borrow in that budget. They had budgeted to borrow 1.1 trillion. I came using the supplementary budget, I cut it down by 300 billion, right? But you see, the train had left the station. So the borrowing was more because in the budget that was read and passed by parliament, it was meant to be more. All I did is that it wasn't as big as they had anticipated. They had actually wanted to borrow 1.1 trillion.
Your Excellency,
which I cut down.
Budget
In relation to that, and my colleague will come in on another note, there is a brewing scandal at the Kenya Medical Supplies Agency, KEMSA. And this is in relation to the bungling of the Global Fund, which is about 3.7 billion Kenya shillings. We understand that the donors are unhappy because of the flaws in the procurement process. And there seems to be systemic corruption that we aren't talking about. And to an extent, you mentioned that during your campaigns of the scandal at the KEMSA, which is the Kenya Medical Supplies Agency. What then will your government do? Because you have talked about the hospitals, the facilities, and the personnel, but there needs to be the medication that will come from this agency. How will you address the problem of corruption at KEMSA?
Watch this space. What you have said is correct. So, and I am doing something about it. I don't want to speak about it now.
We'll see results then?
Yes, you will see results.
Mr. President,
I want to give you my commitment. I will clean up KEMSA, whatever it takes.
Mr. President, and allow me to take you back to the event in Nyandarua County yesterday. You were deputy.
We were talking about taxes.
Okay, of course we did.
Yes.
And
not about taxes
in relation to that.
Okay.
Because it's still about running of a government.
Yes.
Your deputy is on record in equating Kenya to a shareholding company. Yesterday he talked about state appointments, and he talked about it while you were there. I don't want to quote him verbatim. In regards to state appointments that you make as the commander-in-chief and the symbol of national unity, is it a right for others and a privilege for the rest, yet your government expects all Kenyans to pay taxes?
It is a right for every Kenyan.
What do you say about the sentiment by your deputy?
My deputy is a very eloquent person.
It doesn't matter the eloquence.
I suggest...
Is Kenya a shareholding company?
I suggest you go and ask him those questions.
Okay.
He's a very capable Kenyan.
All right. It's straightforward question.
And I am sure he will not shy away.
Okay.
He knows how to handle those questions.
And
but I can give you my commitment.
Mr. President, let me just pause you. You will proceed. I'll give you the time. You will answer me.
Okay.
Allow me to ask you the question.
Okay, Abdi.
The presidency is a symbol of national unity.
Correct.
You all represent us, isn't it?
Absolutely.
What's your view? Is Kenya a shareholding company, or as the Constitution establishes, a secular state where we are all equal before the law?
All Kenyans are equal before the law. When it comes to political appointments, right? Everywhere in the world, you know, there are certain considerations you make. There are people who support you, and they have legitimate expectation. That's why they support you. So, when you're making those appointments, you have to consider national balance. You have also to consider your support base. It happens everywhere. Let me tell you, some people take it to the extreme. You can never accuse me or this administration that I have taken my daughter or my son or my relative and made them an MP or made them a minister or made them something. I will not do that. Yeah, I will not do that. Our competitors do that. They go take their children, they take them here, they take them there, they take them. That I will not do. Because I understand where I am coming from, right? Let me also tell you the following. Sometimes, because of our, obsession, allow me to use that word, it's a bit negative, because we are too much interested in this tribe, this guy is this tribe, this guy is this tribe, this guy is this tribe. We get too absorbed in tribe identity, identity politics. It's time we transited from identity politics into politics of interest. Abdi, the 36,000 housing units that I have launched for construction, there are close to 100,000 Kenyans working. There are Kenyans from all over the place. Nobody asks them when they go to those construction sites as quantity surveyors or technicians or electricians, or nobody asks them which tribe do you come from. I was in Homa Bay to launch the same. And this program of housing is going to be in every corner of the Republic of Kenya. We're going to make sure so that we begin to walk away from 3, 10, 20 appointments. We are so obsessed. It's because of this scarcity. We are so obsessed with 10 people or 20 people. You will discover, for example, it doesn't matter. Even if I appoint 20 people from a certain community, let me not mention any community, it will not change the dynamic. People from that community, millions are still on the street. Wengi bado wako kwa dimanga pale. Wananga. How do we, Abdi, instead of arguing about 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 appointments, how do we create the ecosystem that will employ Kenyans in millions, Kenyans in every part?
Right.
How do we make sure that we have a program in Kakamega that will employ 10,000 young people? We have a program in Kwale. That is the program I'm looking for. And that is why, Abdi, I am telling you, and I want to persuade my fellow countrymen and women, please, let us invest our resources in projects and programs that will create 3, 4, 5 million jobs for the people walking in our streets, our own children, our own blood and flesh walking the streets. Don't walk away from them. Don't say, I have a job. How is it my business to bother about the fellows who don't have a job? Right. I mean, surely, we have a responsibility, Abdi. You agree with me? We have a responsibility.
Okay. We have a responsibility, yes, we do. Taking you back from that housing element, that, you have parachuted into that. Yeah. And it seems to be...
It's because I am very passionate about it.
Seems to be
because I see an opportunity for this country to change.
Thank you. It seems though it looks like a semantic evasion. Final question on this.
Yes.
Because it's still on appointment. You said the expectation from those who supported you during the campaigns, and you have to place them somewhere in your government. Good example. Hypothetically, we are seated here. Mm-hmm. Ayub was your supporter, say, for example, during the campaign.
Pardon?
Ayub was supporter. I supported you, your campaigns, by financing, but I have no qualifications. Eric Latif didn't support you, but is a Kenyan like me who expects to serve his country. He has the qualifications. He has the merit, for example, let's say. Between me and Eric in your government, who will you pick?
I will pick Eric.
But that is not the case in many aspects.
That is the case.
It isn't.
That is the case.
You have made political appointees.
That is the case.
Awarding competency. And
I appointed General Ogola. General Ogola is among the people who went to Bomas to try and overturn my victory. Do you know that? But because when I looked at his CV, he was the best person to be general. I called him and I sat him down. I told him, my friend, you went to Bomas to try and overturn my victory. But because you are the best person to be general, I'm going to give you the job. That is how it works with me. That's why I told you, if a person has the qualification, if he is the best for the job, I will give him the job.
But that is the military. There's a code of conduct for the military and how politics works in Kenya, Mr. President.
Let me tell you, my friend, I had the opportunity. I could have appointed anybody. I had, I think, 10 choices. I didn't have to. You know, there are people who say, oh, you know, William Ruto appointed Ogola because he was the deputy CDF. That's not the case. I made the decision consciously. And I made the decision against the advice of many people. Many people told me, you should not give this, you should not reward this kind of behavior. Okay. But, you know, I also must be sensitive. What exercised my mind? This gentleman has a good track record. And in fact, when I spoke to him, and it's not something that I should be talking about, but because you have asked a good question. What exercised my mind is this gentleman, yes, he may have made a mistake. Maybe because the commander-in-chief that time told him what to do. Maybe he... And when I talked to him, he told me, I have no defense. He told me, I have no defense. You do with me whatever you want. I cannot defend. It was wrong. What I did was wrong. Yeah? I am also conscious. My good friend Ayub, I'm also conscious that since independence, there is nobody from Nyanza who has ever been CDF. And it also played in my mind that I don't want a situation where a whole community think they cannot occupy a certain office. So many things that are part of my system overweighed the mistake he had done. Okay. You know? So I want to tell you that I make very sensitive appointments. I make very deliberate appointments. Many of the appointments, of course, that do not have to directly require my signature. Many of these managing directors, I don't know who, they are interviews all over the place. Okay. You know, so, and when a panel decides, for example, I was brought a panel that interviewed the CEO of museum. And just by coincidence, you know, the person who became number one was my classmate. And I never even asked anybody to assist her. So when it came to me, I told him, my friend, you know, if she's the best, she was a lady.
Okay, so it's safe to assume that according to the President of Kenya, Kenya is a country where all Kenyans are equal before the law. But interestingly, according to his deputy president, it's a shareholding company in which political appointees ought to be the priority for the government.
I think you should not take the sentiments of my deputy out of context.
What was the context?
I think it is fair if you can arrange an interview with him so that you can contextualize, you know, because now we are discussing him, me and you, and he's not here.
Not him per se, Mr. President.
Because that's what it is.
Okay, not him per se, Mr. President. We are discussing what he said. He's not the subject here, but okay. Let me put it this way. Let me paraphrase the question. What's your interpretation of what a shareholding company means? What do you understand by it?
I think, from where I sit, I think what Rigathi Gachagua is just trying to say is that while it is true that first, we must serve all Kenyans equally. We must, to the extent possible, spread appointments across the country. And that's what I have tried as much as possible to do. If you look at my PSS, I think I got PSS from 41 counties. If you look at the CASs, I got CASs, I think, from 45 counties. Every county has a CAS in my administration, even the ones who voted for my opponent. I put them. If it was the philosophy of my deputy,
Yes.
they wouldn't be shareholders, and therefore they wouldn't qualify. But you know, there is an extent to which you must nationalize, you know. Many people thought, for example, the Hustler Fund. Many people thought, oh, you know, this is just going to be for the people who voted for Kenya Kwanza. It is not. Look at the distribution of the Hustler Fund. Every county in the Republic of Kenya equally. You know, you don't have to know nobody. You don't have to know your MP. You don't have to speak to nobody. It is your phone and Hustler Fund. You have your money, you move on. So that is, and precisely, my good brother Ayub, precisely what I was saying. Instead of arguing about 20 appointments, 15, I don't know, this community, that community, why don't we bake a bigger cake? Why don't we create 1 million, 2 million jobs so that everybody has a piece of the pie? And that is what I am asking my good people, the people of Kenya, to help me, you know, invest in these programs. Let us pay our taxes. Let us contribute to the housing fund. Let us, those of us who have a job, let us not hold those who are without a job in contempt. They have not committed any crime. They are not lesser human beings. It is just that they don't have the opportunity me and you have. Let us do something about them